I have moose stories. We all do. Mother Moose charged me one time when I was riding a goofy folding bike on the way to Eagle River one time on Father's Day. I don't know the symbolism there. I have bear stories. We all do, apparently, with this crowd. And I have porcupine and Pacific loon stories. We all do. But I hope none of you have my whale story. It's not supposed to be funny. My mother died of alcoholism soon after I moved to Juneau, Alaska in 2021. She died on the day I was scheduled to go to the DMV to get my Alaska state driver's license. And so for years, my driver's license photo was of like my puffy, crying face, which is something she would have found hilarious, actually. Her death kicked off this flurry of events. I had to go back home for about a month and deal with the funeral and go through her massive closet and be with my dad and my beloved siblings. And by the time I got back to Juneau, it was the start of winter, and I was going into the dark times with one less parent. But during that time, I found Juneau and Alaska in general to be a very healing place. I knew nothing about Southeast Alaska. I had shown up a complete dirtbag, a former food writer who liked to ride her bike to the bars of Tempe, Arizona. I bought a rain jacket as my winter coat. But I managed to get to the, and even the one time I did try to ride my bike to the bar, I got completely soaked, and me and a porcupine scared each other on the bike path, and there's my porcupine story. But I managed to get to the bars anyway, and considered myself a well-liked new kid by the time Christmas rolled around. So at this point in Juneau, I had the car and the job and the apartment and the mail all forwarded, but I hadn't found a new therapist yet. I figured I better get one since, I hadn't probably even really accepted the fact that my mother had just passed. And we talked about that, sure, but soon into our sessions, my psychologist had a question for me. Why do you drink? I like bars and going to them. I like making cocktails while I'm cooking and watching movies. I love karaoke, and what kind of psychopath does that sober? Okay, she said. I think you have a problem with alcohol. I'd never thought to turn the notion on myself that I, too, had an alcohol dependency. But then I thought back to the weekend before when I almost drunkenly landed myself in the Gastineau Channel and thought maybe my doctor had a point. So I took this session very seriously, and I soon swapped attempted drunk cycling for activities like birding and hiking, and my bar buddies for people like Brenda, an extremely soft-spoken retired fish biologist who was on the board of the Juneau Audubon Society that I had just joined. So that means that, yes, I was waking up early on the weekends voluntarily, hangover-free, to go birding with old ladies. And yes, I was very happy with this. So then came our first sad milestone, my mother's birthday, the first we'd have without her, and my father was going to come visit me in Alaska for that day. And the trip was great. He wanted to see a glacier, so I took him to Mendenhall. He wanted to see bald eagles, so I took him to the landfill at Lemon Creek. We went up the Gold Belt tram and went to the museums, and of course he fixed about 1,000 things in my apartment. But we hadn't been on a boat yet, even though my father was more than prepared. He bought a fresh pair of extra tufts at the Fred Meyer, very early in the trip. So that's when I thought of Brenda. Brenda had a skiff that she was willing to haul out to Tea Harbor for us, and in true Alaska old lady fashion, she donned thigh-high waders and got the boat off the trailer connected to her ancient Subaru into the water all by herself. She didn't want any help. And it was this beautiful, rare, calm day on the Inside Passage. We were counting harlequin duck, and I thought anything that could happen now on this bittersweet trip would just be a bonus. And that's when we saw a spout. Brenda and I had explained to Dad that puff of mist down yonder meant a whale was in the vicinity. So we aimed the skiff, and we and a couple of other nearby vessels started chasing this poor thing down. And we saw the spout, we lost the spout, we saw it, we've lost it repeatedly. and it kind of surfaced a little bit, just a little bit of its back, and we took that as a win. So the whale-watching catamaran next to us took its leave, and we decided it was time to get back to the boat launch and Brenda's Subaru. And that's when a massive humpback whale exploded out of the water within a few yards of this boat. We were all screaming and rocking wildly. We were holding onto the edge of the boat. It breached again and again. We're all fumbling for our phones. It was the first time I'd heard Brenda's voice above a whisper. It was chaos. I would have been scared of capsizing if I weren't so proud of myself for having the hookup with someone with a boat. By the time I got my phone out, it had breached a fourth time and a fifth time, and I had only caught the splash. That was the real one. By the time we were tooting back to T Harbor, my dad was trying to get my attention. He was whispering something. "You know that was your mom, right?" I had hoped it was. One particularly sad detail about my mother's death is that she never got the chance to visit me in Juneau, and she never got to see Alaska. But she was shipped here in a little yellow container that was shipped in a package that read "human remains" on the side. And I'll never forget that delivery kid's face. He was freaked. So I moved from Juneau 2 years ago to Anchorage because I got my dream gig, a job with the National Audubon Society. I get to now care about birds for a living. And to get here, my partner and I had to get on the ferry and go up to Haines and get on the road system, cut through Canada, go into Tok, and wind down into South Central and on into Anchorage. I saw more of Alaska than I've ever seen before. And Mom got to see it too. She was in the cup holder. Thank you.